My question today is, so I have a lot of friends that are um, pretty deep in the materialistic mindset and that don't have really a lot of contact with spirituality or anything like that.
Mhm.
And I I've been trying to explain what's going on with me with some of them, but it's just very it doesn't go very smoothly. And so I wonder, do you know whether there are any resources that are specifically targeted to bridging this gap between someone that is very materialistic and explaining what Kundalini means in through this lens?
It's a great question, Jonas. It's a very tricky thing to try and explain to others in our lives, no matter how open-minded they may be. If they haven't had a direct experience themselves, it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, for them to truly understand. And so, in my view, the first place we begin is with ourselves by understanding that they cannot understand. And so we give them a bit of slack as opposed to expecting them to give us some slack, right? So we give them a bit more empathy and understanding, take the pressure off of them a little bit. Um, so this is the reason that I've created KundaliniAwareness.org. It's a website where we can send our friends, families, therapists, maybe even your doctor to this website where there are firstly licensed mental health professionals that have direct Kundalini awakening experience themselves. So they're operating in an evidence-based paradigm, scientific-based paradigm. Some of them are the ones who are psychiatrists, psychologists. They give out diagnoses for, mental illnesses. So your friends may say, Jonas, that sounds like mental illness. Well, you can say, well, actually, no, there are doctors who are experiences themselves and they're not mentally ill. So that's one way we can sort of refute those who, come at us with the materialistic argument that this is just, something going wrong with your brain or whatever. Um, on KundaliniAwareness.org, I have a list of books and videos. Most of those people are scientists, they're doctors that have written about their own experiences. They've written material to support others going through it. So the general idea behind this website is we're not trying to necessarily convince anybody 100%, but we're trying to get the materialistic people to say, wait a minute, all of these people can't be making up this if they're all demonstrating very consistent um, ideas across the board throughout history. It's a very consistent story here with Kundalini awakening. And smart, credible people are sharing the same story. So if your materialistic friends have any degree of open-mindedness and any degree of reason, they may be able to put two and two together and say, hey, maybe there's something actually valid going on here. Um, that's the aim behind KundaliniAwareness.org. You can also recommend, say, the book, which is also listed on the website there. It's by Dr. Lee Sanella, and it's called Kundalini, Transcendence or Psychosis. And so he was asking this question, essentially, are these people psychotic or are they experiencing some sort of transcendent, quote unquote, spiritual phenomena? And so he studied like, thousands of people going through this and whatnot. Um, there's a lot of really smart people doing a lot of great work. It just, you may have to sort of find it and then present it to your friends in a way that they can understand. That's if you really want to convince them of this Kundalini process. My view is to live it out ourselves. If it's truly transformative, allow it to transform you and let your friends and your family take note of the changes that you've made in your life. That's a powerful way for them to also recognize that there's something valid going on here. It's one thing to say, hey, Kundalini is real. It's going to make you into a divine being. But if you say that you're going through it and you're not exactly, you're still a complete mess, it makes them say, yeah, it sounds like you're making that up. But if you genuinely begin to operate in a more open-hearted way, things start to sort of come together for you in your life, then they can say, hey, something's going on with this person. I want to look more into it because I want those benefits too. So that's one paradigm we can approach it from. We can also approach it in a more general stance. We can talk just about healing. We all have repressed trauma. When we sit in meditation, which is basically not running away from our trauma, the trauma surfaces, it's released, and we find peace and spaciousness. That's pretty easy to understand. We don't have to mention the word Kundalini in that process, but essentially that's what Kundalini is doing. So, different ways that we can sort of cater the story depending on our audience. And this is wisdom. This is wisdom. And we see this also with some really great, very evolved spiritual masters and guides and teachers. The larger their audience becomes, the more watered down their message becomes, and they don't disclose too much detail about Kundalini and stuff. So, for example, Amma, the hugging saint, very evolved, very advanced person on the path. I went to see her in Toronto, expecting her to give a really brilliant, deep talk about Kundalini and this and that. Well, she was speaking to a group of 2,000 people, and all she was talking about was love one another, care for one another, be kind, love God, pray. That was it. So she catered her message according to her audience, and her audience weren't people all of us. It was just, people would take their whole family to go and see this really loving woman, this great saint. They don't know anything about Kundalini because they're not experiencing it. So, like Amma, we can take a same kind of approach, and we cater our message depending on our audience, and understand that the further ahead we get on the path, fewer and fewer are going to understand the details of our awakening process. But that's okay, because more and more people can understand the benefits of our awakening process, which is, of course, our open-heartedness, our presence, our compassion. Okay, so that's a little bit that's coming to me to share, but this is a great question, Jonas. Hope I can help you out a little bit. KundaliniAwareness.org. That's the aim behind
Thank you.
it.
I will check out the website. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And if you feel like you can submit your story as well. So the idea is the more stories we get by others that have written it in a sort of reflective, grounded, clear way, once again, skeptics can come and say, okay, there's 50 stories here from people of all ages from around the world. And if you look at all of them, they're reporting essentially the same thing. They can't be crazy. There's something going on here, right? So that's the aim. So if you'd like to contribute, you can submit your story. Thanks, Jonas.